Hello again, back with another drawing. This one is a colored pencil portrait I call Brothers. I'm using some new paper I picked up. It is the Fabriano Hot Press Studio Watercolor paper. It has a medium surface on the front side and the back side is slightly finer. My intent was to use the back side of the paper with the Faber Castell Polychromos pencils because they layer so well even with finer tooth paper. And I thought I might be able to get a higher detail result with the finer side. Unfortunately, I laid things out on the medium front face and was too far into the drawing before realizing what I'd done. For the drawing, I'm testing out my new light flesh pencil that I picked up. As I've determined, the medium flesh is just too intense in most cases. I've already traced out my drawing, and you may notice that as I improve over time, at least I hope I'm improving, I am relying less and less on tracing out my image. But I do trace out the most important features, like the position of the eyes, the ears, and the mouth, and in some cases, any changes in the clothing color. After I have them lightly traced out using a 5-inch pencil, I will go over the lines with a color pencil that is the appropriate color for that section of the drawing. I will use light gray if I am unsure of what color to use. I start with the face using the light pink, then focus on the eyes using Van Dyke brown and walnut brown with some black. The eyes can take a while, so I often jump to another feature just to get rid of the floating eye effect, and it also makes me feel I've accomplished something. So I work on the ear, then I start with the hair, mainly focusing on laying down a base layer of Van Dyke brown. Later I will go back and add highlights using white, black, and yellow. I continue to add layers to the face, more light flesh, as well as shading on the left side and around the eyes. I sketch in the eyebrows with Van Dyke brown, just enough to allow me to compare the position of the eyebrows with the reference photo. I add the first layer to the lips. Here I'm using medium flesh, but I will darken things up later with various shades of pink and red. I darken the face with burnt ochre and raw umber. In the shaded areas, I will also add some cold gray. Medium flesh is used for the cheeks to get a rosier appearance, and also under the chin where you have some reflected color from his shirt. I now start to focus on the other brother's arm. It's a darker brown, quite tanned, and is behind him, so it's shaded. I use burnt ochre, burnt sienna, and raw umber with some cold gray to shade things. The shirt is two-tone red and gray. The shoulder and collar are gray, dark patches done with warm gray, lighter patches with cold gray. I do the lightest sections of the shirt with dark cadmium orange, pale germanium lake, and the darkest sections with deep scarlet red. I finish up the shading with some pink and white. One reason I love working with the Polychromos pencils is that laying down these bright colors is so easy. You don't have to press hard, and it doesn't feel like a chore. Plus, the 60 set has enough shades of each color to easily allow you to find the appropriate color for creating the contrasts you want. I color in the neck of the little brother, then quickly move on to the older brother. I start with one layer of burnt sienna for the hair, as I want a slightly lighter base for the hair. I then focus on the eyes, again with burnt sienna to start. For his eyes, I add in slight hints of cobalt green in the whites and cobalt green in the reflections. I use walnut brown for the outer edges of the pupils. I start to shade in the face with the new light flesh, darken the hair with Van Dyke brown, rough in the eyebrows, and then add another layer for the hair, this time using a little bit more pressure. For his face and arms, I try to get the tanned appearance with burnt ochre. Darker sections around the nose, I use raw umber. With the hair and eyes done, I mainly focus on layering the colors of the face using light flesh, some medium flesh for the cheeks, and burnt ochre to darken things up. You may notice that I'm struggling with the color corrections for the camera. As I moved recently, I'm now in a new art room, and sadly it has a very horrible yellow fluorescent light. This bathes everything in a yellow light, and I've been struggling to color correct things to make them look more natural, and generally I find I'm not succeeding. I spent more time layering the face of the older brother, in part because the angle of his face allowed me to build more contrast into the drawing. His skin was also darker, which required a little more care in the layering. I didn't quite get the nose right, both the tip of the nose and the base. I gave him more of a flat nose in the end, but his nose isn't that flat. The base of the nose doesn't look right either, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I do realize that part of the problem has to do with the angle I'm drawing from. While I'm looking directly at my reference image, because I'm using a flat table, I am drawing on about a 45 to 60 degree angle. I can't draw directly above my image, otherwise I'd be blocking the view of the camera. I hope to get a drawing or drafting table, but at this point I will have to continue with the desktop and the slightly skewed images. I fill in the neck with skin tones, but add in some burnt sienna and walnut brown to darken areas. At this point, I know I am nearing the end of the drawing, and I'm trying to stop myself from rushing things. I often find that as I get closer to finishing, I have a tendency to rush things. This often results in a finished product that I'm unhappy with. The big brother's shirt is gray with dark blue trim. I use dark indigo and black for the darkest sections of the trim, Prussian blue for the lighter. I lighten areas with cold gray and white. I should also point out that I'm lightening and burnishing with the Polychromos white, but in some areas I'm actually using a Prismacolor Premier white. The gray section of the shirt, I use all the grays supplied and mix in a little bit of light ultramarine. The last thing I needed to do was the arm. This I mainly used burnt ochre, which I lightened with light flesh. Unfortunately, I went a little too dark on the arm. I then tried to put a heavy layer of white over top to bring the color back down. The end result looked like a tan person who'd put on a heavy layer of sunblock. Finally, I go through and just do some touch-ups, darkening or lightening sections where they're required. Now is where I take the time to really look at the portrait and see what I don't like or could have improved. The big brother I'm fairly happy with. Yes, his nose isn't quite right, but it isn't that far off either. Hair, ears, mouth, and most importantly the eyes look good. When I look at the little brother, it makes me think of a lifeless doll. Oddly, he kind of looks that way in the reference image. His right eye is a bit off, something with the angle, but the left eye is good. In the end, I'm happy with the Polychromos pencils, fairly happy with the Fabriano paper. I like the size of the paper, and it's very durable. And using watercolor paper allows me to add in a background using ink tints if I so desire. That's all for now. I have several other projects on the go, so it will probably be 2 weeks before I have another drawing done. I am, however, putting together a little review of some papers that I've been using. Hopefully I'll get that posted soon. Thank you for watching and feel free to subscribe.